Welcome back to the Wine Crush. I'm Laura Lawson. Right now, I'm very much looking forward to our next guest. Not only have they come up with something newsworthy and creative, but hopefully, this is going to be one of those innovations that really helps me turn the corner and think positively of the changes in the wine business. So, right now, we have Mr. Gustavo Gonzalez, winemaker from Mira Winery. Gustavo, welcome to the Wine Crush.
Hi there. Thank you for having me.
It is truly my pleasure to have you. I've had my producer stalking you down ever since I first got a small inkling of what you were doing. And I'm delighted that you're on the show today because honestly, I'm looking forward to hearing what you're doing, why you're doing it, and the benefits of it. Obviously, I'm a good Southern girl, so I appreciate anything being done in Charleston Harbor. But for our listeners, if you would take a beat and tell us what you are doing involving Charleston Harbor wine and the great winery you represent.
Right. Well, simply what we did is we took 4 cases of our 2009 Cabernet from Napa Valley, and we decided to put that in the Charleston Harbor for 3 months, about 60 feet deep, to see what the effect would be on the wine, and then compare it to what we have on shore, and see and get some sommeliers together, taste the wines, do some analysis, and see what's different about it.
Okay, there's so many fun things. Why? What was, I mean, were we all sitting around drinking a whole bunch of Cabernet, drinking a whole bunch of champagne and said, "Wow, this might be really cool. Let's see what happens." What was the impetus for this?
Well, drinking is usually involved, that's for sure. But the fact is, as a winemaker, you're limited by the number. You do basically the same thing. All winemakers are doing the same thing when they're fermenting wine and when they're aging in barrels and warehouses and stuff like that. And, we just read some stories about some of these ships that were found in different places that had these old wines or champagnes in them. And the stories of how great those champagnes were kind of inspired us to try it and see what would happen with our wine.
Well, in doing that, why Charleston Harbor? Well, okay, let's start here. Tell our listeners first about Mira Winery. Tell us about your baseline. When you decide not to get your sea legs on, what is your winery known for? Where are you located? Tell us all the good stuff.
Okay, well, we're a relatively new winery. We're located in the Napa Valley in California, and we started basically with our first production wines in 2009. And there's three of us behind the project, two of us in California, and the person that's lucky enough to be our president, Jim Dyke, is actually based in Charleston, and he's very familiar with the food and wine scene that's there. And so we thought, just to get away from California to do something in a much more unique place, such as Charleston, would be fun.
Well, without a doubt, yes. Okay, so obviously we now know why Charleston Harbor, because your president lives there. But in the sinking of the wine, there's so many other things, like you said, and that kind of goes hand in hand with what we've been discussing on the Crush so far today, that you hate to say it's a commodity, and I don't mean that, but wine, exactly. You have grapes, you crush them, they ferment. You can do different things. You can age them different ways. You can definitely have different yeast. You can do different kind of filtrations. But ultimately, when it comes down to it, you're stuck within a coloring book, and you pretty much stay in the lines. What you have done is taken the book and thrown it out. What do you hope to get by sinking wine in Charleston Harbor?
Well, we hope to find a different tool for aging, and I don't know how, in the short term, how much of this we're going to be able to adapt going forward. But we're hoping to have just something different than what we have on shore. I don't know what the flavor profile is going to be. I think it's going to age a little bit slower. But not thinking that it's going to be better or worse than what we have, just different, and just a different way to age compared to what we traditionally do.
Okay, are one of you now? See, this is where all the questions come in. You're gonna make me pull them out like teeth. Are one of you a scuba diver, or one of y'all really into diving, and that's how this came about?
No, none of us are. Neither of us are scuba divers or into diving or anything like that. I mean, really, it came from the stories that we've read about shipwrecks, and there are some wineries in Europe that are doing this apparently already with barrels of wine and things like that. But nobody here had actually really tried it. At least no one that we're aware of. And that's why we decided to do it, just to try something different, try to be innovative. Because as I said before, as a winemaker, you're tied pretty much to the same colors in your coloring book as you described. So why not try something else? And if it produces something interesting, that would be great. And if it doesn't, that's great too, because we learned something.
Well, all right, let's talk about logistics on this. So you said essentially there are 4 cases of your 2009 Cabernet sitting down in the silt. How did you decide? What kind of container, what kind of vessel are they in?
Well, we had these special metal cages built. They kind of look like what you would use to trap lobsters offshore.
Okay.
And then we tied the bottles in onto these basically wood slabs inside the cage. We secured the bottles on there neck down, and the bottles themselves have a wax seal over the cork. And then we had the scuba dive team take them down to about 60 feet below the surface.
All right. So basically, we're thinking Shark Tank for Cabernet.
Exactly.
We can make a reality show out about it. See we can make a whole amazing race out of this. Hand someone a corkscrew and a snorkel mask and say, go. See what happens. All right, so we have them down in Charleston Harbor. Now, here's the next thing. I know that people can be finicky in that area. Did you have to approach the local government? Did you have to get special permission, or just slide out there by the dark of night?
We went out there right in the middle of the day and put them down. So we didn't necessarily go out and get permission to do it, but people definitely knew about it, and we just did it.
Hey, that works. Usually I think they're a little more serious about people actually pulling things up from Charleston Harbor than from down. Now, I assume that we're not going to have a raise the Titanic moment. Y'all have the exact GPS. You know where it is?
Yeah, we actually put monitoring devices on the cages that include, things for temperature and pressure and things like that, and also a GPS device so that we know where it's at.
Yeah, by the
it
time
might shift around a little bit, and we'd hate to go back out there and not find it.
Well, that are a whole bunch of drunk sharks. There are a lot of sharks in Charleston Harbor. You see them all circling around looking for the next human to come down with a cage. All right, so we know the why, we know the where. You didn't have to have any kind of special permission. Now, why 3 months? Why not 6? Why not 12? Why exactly 3?
Well, this first go-around, because we just thought of this idea at the beginning of the year, so there was
I'm Laura Lawson. This is the Wine Crush. Right now we are online with Mr. Gustavo Gonzalez, the winemaker from Mira Winery. Gustavo, are you still with us?
I am.
Okay. When we last left you, we had sunk 4 cases of Cabernet into Charleston Harbor, and we are just kind of hanging out to see what kind of difference it makes. Now, of course, this is just my petty.
But the other thing too was the water temperature. So
I know you said you had monitors on it. Have y'all had any problems, you think, with people trying to go retrieve it or try and steal your wine or think, this would be kind of cool? You do know it's still there, right?
We do know it's there, and why not just try it? It was pretty secretive going out. Let's put it in 3 months, make sure nobody will see how well that works, and with anybody knows where it is. When we bottled, no one really thought doing it. 2011 version of the Cabernet.
That would be a hell of an effort to all of a sudden go out there and all the cages and all the little trackers be there, nothing but empty bottles, little notes in it. Thanks, really enjoyed it.
That one ages just entirely.
Next time, leave it down 6 months.
To this one that aged a little bit onshore.
All right.
And then
so having said that, now let's look at this. You're obviously the winemaker. You've got planning on being progressive with this idea. You know what you're doing. When we're looking at a situation like this, now if you start looking, obviously there's some various factors that can. You don't have to worry necessarily about decompression. One is going to be pressure. The second is going to be temperature. So the third is going to be movement without any kind of breaks. How do you expect when you pull it out of the water? Obviously, we're not dealing with labels.
Well, the one that I'm the most curious about is the movement.
Is it something that we're going to have a big party down in Charleston Harbor? You have the scuba divers, you're going to go get it, we're going to go straight and open it, or how are you planning on evaluating this?
I would like to immediately go into it because I'm curious to see how it's going to taste. It's going to slow down. The idea for me would be to wine and we compare it to what we have onshore. And I know 3 months isn't a long period of time maybe to really see it, but I have a feeling it's going to taste younger than what we have onshore. And compare it blindly to see how it tastes if there's any difference from what we have onshore.
Now, how do you think pressure is going to affect? I mean, obviously, it's in a glass bottle. We know it's not going to burst. Do you think the pressure is going to have any kind of effect on it? Hey, listen, we need to take a quick break.
I don't think it will have too much of an effect.
Would you mind hanging out till we get through these commercials and I have a few last questions? All right. Hey, hang out when we get back. We will have a little bit more about our party in Charleston Harbor and see what else we can find out about this innovative way to age wine. Except for the fact that being underwater, you know that there is no extra oxygen that's going to get into that bottle.
Exactly, and that's where I think that the aging process will be a little bit slower.
All right, what did I miss? We talked about pressure, we discussed temperature, obviously we discussed the fact that it's going to be moving a little bit. Are there other considerations in doing this?
Yeah, there's also the complete absence of light.
Oh,
so even though we're in the warehouse, it's usually dark. During operating hours, there's artificial light in the warehouse, even though the wine's in boxes. In this case, there's no light at all.
Yeah, no, I guess it would be totally and absolutely dark.
Yeah.
Now, see, to me, this is just fascinating. I hate the fact you're only doing it 3 months. We need to start a page on the Wine Crush saying, please leave it longer. Let's do a comparative.
Well, we're going to do it again in the fall, so you'll have to hang tight. We'll get the first impression from these bottles, and then we'll do something a little bit longer. And if we can get away with more time, not just pull it out in May because we're concerned about weather, that would be great too, to do it for a year or 2 years or something like that.
Absolutely. Now, I've got to ask, because I am the Chardonnay guzzling diva, why did you pick Cabernet?
Well, Cabernet was a simple choice just because it's the wine that everybody knows in terms of red. It's the biggest seller for red wines. We know Chardonnay is the biggest seller in general. But Cabernet has some of the characteristics maybe that you would look for in aging compared to Chardonnay, with the tannin and stuff like that. So we just thought it was a better fit, and it was, like I said, it's a wine that more people are aware of compared to our Syrah or our Pinot. But that doesn't mean that in the future we won't experiment with other varieties, because I think it would be neat to do that as well.
I think 3 months of Chardonnay, totally no light, no anything. It'd be fascinating to see if there was a difference, because people already have the argument about white wines. I know that people get in their head, oh, I'm not going to drink an aged Chardonnay. It tastes sherry. It tastes funny. It'd be fun because, in essence, what we're dealing with, there shouldn't be much of a color change outside of what would be on the label. You shouldn't know that it's an older Chardonnay or not.
Right.
So that will be fun. Now, of course, the last question I got to ask, you said you're a relatively new winery. What got you into the wine business to begin with?
Well, I've been in the wine business for almost 18 years now. So I started my career in the Napa Valley. I worked in Italy and South America and Burgundy as well. And we always, me and the two other partners, you always kind of dream of having your own label, your own brand. And we had an opportunity in 2009 to get grapes from one of the top grape growers in the Napa Valley, Hyde Vineyard, and we just couldn't pass it up. So putting our business plan together and seeing how much we love all the different kinds of varieties, we decided to pursue other varieties besides what we started with, which was Syrah. And here we are 3 years later, completely focused on our brand and not doing anything else.
Well, it's great, especially when you're looking at Hyde Vineyard and sharing the grapes with greats like Ramey. It's going to be great to see what happens. When we had started this show today, I was discussing the idea of wine and the people creating it are being progressive in their marketing, in their packaging, in the fact of how they're creating their wine. Would you consider yourself to be one of the progressives?
I think so. I mean, I'm always looking for something different to try. And with that said, I'm a very traditional winemaker, let's say. I like to use traditional techniques to try to get traditional tasting wines, let's say. But you always look for places where you can innovate where you can innovate. And for that reason, I definitely consider that we're doing something innovative.
Without a doubt. Now, you realize, dear, that most normal winemakers, they just make themselves happy by finding some kind of strange varietal, like a Primitivo or some kind of Gewürztraminer or Charbonneau, and they make a barrel and they stick it in the back of the winery. Nope, you could not be normal, could you?
No, cannot be normal.
I like it. Well, do we have a set date for the raising of the bottles?
Right now, it's scheduled for May 25th.
May 25th. So you're doing it right around Memorial Day weekend.
That's right.
All right. Well, we are going to have to find a way when you start beginning to pop those corks. It would be a lot of fun to have you back on the show or have you around so that our listeners can see what the final verdict is going to be.
I would love to join you again.
All right. Well, Gustavo, thank you very much for being part of the Crush and giving us a progressive idea on neat things that are happening with wine. And I'm looking forward to talking to you in a couple months.
Thank you very much. You have a great day.
You do the same.